Hello and welcome. Let's have a little chat about Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency by Douglas Adams. This is the most recent book that I finished, and following this chat, I'll also touch base briefly on what I'm currently reading as well as what my next read is going to be. But Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, published in 1987 originally. This edition is apparently from 1987. It appears to be a first edition, although I bought this book used in the middle 90s, and that is the last time that I read it. It is in my December I am devoting to rereading. I have mentioned on a couple of other videos, and this is the first book in December that I have managed to reread. And I did reread this originally. The last time I read it was in the middle 90s, and I wanted to reread it really because I had been watching the TV series on BBC America, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, and I got real curious about, because I couldn't remember a lot of the details of the book, but I did remember that I had a different picture in my mind of Dirk Gently from the book versus what's presented in the TV series, and that's okay because they're different. The book is different than the TV series, although it does sort of share the same sort of vibe, I guess. But what it's about, it's basically a mystery. Our main character is named Richard. Richard is sort of a normal guy who's, I guess somewhat successful with his business. He works in software development and has kind of strained relationship with his current girlfriend that he's trying to repair. But he has crossed paths in the past with Dirk Gently, who has had a series of names, but is currently operating under the name Dirk Gently, we learn. And Dirk Gently has a holistic detective agency, and I'll talk a bit more about that here in a bit. But like I said, there winds up being a murder, or I didn't say that, but there is a murder, and the mystery ensues then because they're somewhat mysterious. So I thought maybe the best way to describe this book would be to just kind of touch on a few of the different seemingly unrelated things that appear in this book. Okay, so I mentioned we have a murder. I jotted a few down. We have time travel. We have aliens. We have ghosts. We have the Rime of the Ancient Mariner poem and Kubla Khan poem by the English poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. We have electric monks. We have horses in bathrooms. We have sofas stuck in stairwells. Lost cats, surly office receptionists. The music of the spheres, a cellist, and Bach. The fundamental thing about Dirk Gently's philosophy that I mentioned earlier is the interconnectedness of all things. So his holistic detective agency really focuses on this. Everything's connected. This is also a running theme in the TV series. So even though things are a bit odd, they are, in Dirk's mind, ultimately all connected. So yeah, the thoughts about the book, it's really 1980s. There's a lot of 1980s sort of vibe to it. Although it reads now, it didn't really read to me as being dated. It read to me as a book set in the 1980s. For example, we have car phones, we have phone answering machines, the cassette type. There are Macintosh computers. The computer, I guess. Macintosh computers in particular are mentioned in the book, and then also in this edition, the back of this, you can see this photo. This is Douglas Adams, and then down here it says, "Images of Douglas Adams created on an Apple Macintosh Plus using MacVision by Koala after a difficult night." So we probably wouldn't see this kind of thing on a book currently because personal computers are a part of our everyday lives now. But back in the 1987 when this book came out, it was still sort of a relatively new thing. And then also we have the author's. Here we have the author's description here in the back, and the last paragraph says, "He lives in Islington near London with a lady barrister and an Apple Macintosh." Because they were so unusual at the time that, that's something to be noted, I guess. The other cool thing I think about this edition that I got is it has it obviously it belonged to someone else. I mentioned that I had bought this used, so there's a note on it here from the original owners, and it says, "Dearest Chad and Mary Beth, this book is for you two to read while traveling to and fro from Vancouver and Kentucky. Love from Gavin and Kathy XOXO." So, and it's dated 1992, actually, the note. So this book may have already had several owners before me, actually. But yeah, I think it's still in great condition, and I love this cover. So about the book, other thoughts. Douglas Adams to me is just very sort of entertaining read to me, and this book really came along at the right time for me to read because I've been so kind of overwhelmed with work and issues and other sort of things sort of impeding on my time the last couple of weeks, especially. And so this book was a real sort of pleasure to read, really, funny, and just really, I enjoyed it, really quite a bit. So the TV series, I did mention a bit about it. The series does bear a resemblance to Douglas Adams, although the plot and the location, even the setting of the book is a fictional college called Saint Said in Cambridge, and then also it's set in London, whereas in the TV series that is set in, I think, or started out in Seattle and it's moved to Montana for the second season, so it's in the U.S., and there is no Richard, there is a Todd, a different sort of sidekick, but a sort of similar person to the Richard of the book. And the Dirk Gently character in the book is similar to the character as portrayed on the TV series, but the character in the book is plump and wears glasses and kind of an odd hat and is a rather self-centered person. He is very chatty though, and the Dirk Gently in the TV series is thin and not quite so eccentric looking, but is still quite chatty. And I'm enjoying both the film and the TV series and the book, although they are different. The mystery turned out to be quite a ride to go on. The book ends on a note as if there were going to be a sequel to it. It does say to be continued. I don't know that it was. If anybody knows, if there's another one similar to this, I looked it up, or I did a brief kind of just glance online, and I didn't see another Dirk Gently book right off the bat, so I'm not sure if there was or not, but if so, I haven't read it. Anyway, I think I will close the chat with that. Like I said, I can't say a lot about the book like I might normally because I don't want to give anything away, because it's really just a series of seemingly disconnected things that ultimately all sort of make sense by the time we're done. So what I'm currently reading now, let me just pull it up for you. I am reading Star Maker by Olaf Stapledon. This is considered by many to be classic science fiction. Philosophical science fiction was really originally published in 1937. Olaf Stapledon published a better-known work called Last and First Men. That was before this one. That was kind of a history, I think, of humanity over the last couple of billion years. And I have not read that. This is actually the only book by Olaf Stapledon I have read. I last read this, according to Goodreads, in 2013, and I wanted to reread this just because it had been so long since I had read it, and I had really enjoyed it back when I read it back in 2013. But I couldn't remember a lot of the details, and it just really struck me that it was something that I wanted to visit again. And so far, I am about maybe a fourth of the way through. And it is, deeply philosophical, not a big plot. It's a person, an unnamed narrator who goes on this mental journey through the cosmos and through the universe. And so, there'll be a chat on this coming up when I get it finished. And then my next planned read is going to be, let me just call it up. I don't own this book anymore. I have read this book twice previously, but I wanted to reread it again, Cold Mountain by Charles Frazier. I read this back when it came out, originally in 1997. I read it, and then it's one of those rare books that I read. I let it sink in a little bit, and then I picked it up and read it right again, kind of back to back. And I loved it at the time. I wanted to reread this because I remembered it being a kind of a chilly book. It had a winter feel to it. So it seems like a timely book as far as winter goes. It's actually snow on the ground here where I live today, and so I really just wanted to readdress it again. And since it had been so meaningful to me back in the 90s when I read it originally, I thought I would read it again and see how I felt about it now. I do have this coming from the library, so I should pick it up. I decided not to buy another copy of it. I've owned 2 copies of it previously. I kept giving them away, but I do really like it. So that'll be coming up also in the near future. So I am continuing on with my December rereading. I will be doing this throughout the month of December. I have several other books that I do hope to get to. I have finalized my 2018 must-read list, and I will have an announcement video of that coming up fairly soon, probably in the next week, maybe next weekend. So within a relatively short time, I'm just trying to put together the videos. So that'll be coming up. It might have to be split up into 2 videos. So anyway, stay tuned to that. I also have an opera chat to do. So that'll be coming up very soon because I need to get that done. So that'll be coming up. So until next time, take care. Bye.